The sun dipped low over the skyline of Manhattan, casting long shadows over the bustling streets below. The hum of the city, the sharp sounds of honking cars and hurried footsteps, blended together into the soundtrack of everyday life. But for Lucas Reed, CEO of Coal Dynamics, all of it was just background noise as he stood on stage at one of the city's most prestigious tech events. Lucas was no stranger to the spotlight. Clad in a perfectly tailored dark suit, with neatly combed dark hair and sharp blue eyes, he radiated authority. At 36, he had already built one of the most successful fintech companies in the world, and the crowd around him now seemed to hang on his every word. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lucas Reed, CEO of Coal Dynamics. Tonight, we introduce a breakthrough in financial technology, a system that will predict the future of finance. Trust me, what you are about to witness will redefine the industry. His voice resonated through the large hall, with sleek digital displays showcasing graphs and projections lighting up the room. Investors, analysts, and journalists alike were captivated, nodding along, impressed by the vision he presented. Everything was going perfectly, until the unthinkable happened. A red warning flashed across the largest screen. The charts froze. Projections stalled. The room immediately buzzed with murmurs of confusion. Lucas felt a familiar pang of discomfort. This was a mistake he could not afford, not in front of this crowd, before he could react. A calm voice sliced through the tension. That's a syntax anomaly in the predictive cache. A young woman near the front row called out. Her voice was confident, controlled, unaffected by the growing chaos in the room. If you reroute the buffer through the secondary algorithm, it'll stabilize immediately. Lucas turned toward the voice. She was standing just a few feet away, her blonde hair cascading loosely over her shoulders. She was calm, almost too calm, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. And somehow, she wasn't fazed by the 100 eyes now fixed on her. Who are you? Lucas asked, his surprise obvious as he walked toward her. The woman closed her laptop and looked up at him with unwavering poise. Ava Lawson, data analyst. I just made a simple adjustment to the algorithm. Lucas couldn't take his eyes off her. Ava Lusana's name he hadn't heard before, yet she had already made an indelible impression. She wasn't like the other people in the room who were starstruck by his presence. In fact, it seemed as though she was completely immune to the overwhelming force of his reputation. Impressive, Lucas said, the corner of his mouth lifting in a rare, appreciative smile. Seems like you're the only one in here unaffected by this little hiccup. She didn't smile, but there was a spark of quiet pride in her eyes. It's my job to find solutions, not to stand around worrying. There was something about Avessam that intrigued him, something that made him feel both challenged and intrigued. In all his years, no one had ever spoken to him like that. Everyone he met was either in awe of him or intimidated. But Ava didn't seem impressed in the slightest. As the presentation continued, Lucas couldn't stop thinking about her. His mind kept circling back to the way she had handled the crisis with such grace and efficiency. And for the first time in years, he felt a pull and attraction, though he couldn't fully understand it. Later that evening, Lucas returned to his penthouse office, the lights of the city outside twinkling like stars. His mind wasn't on the success of the presentation. Anymore it was consumed by Ava Lawson. She had caught his attention in a way no one else had. More than her beauty, it was the calm confidence in her demeanor, the way she had taken control of the situation without hesitation that intrigued him. He hadn't met anyone like her before. Lucas walked over to the window, his reflection merging with the city lights outside. He was a man who prided himself on controlling everything. But in that moment, he found himself wondering about something he hadn't considered in years. Could he afford to let someone else take the lead? He turned away from the window, his mind racing. He knew that she was exactly the kind of person he needed on his team. But he also knew that getting her to join his company wouldn't be easy. Ava had a kind of independence that he couldn't easily break. Could he convince her to work for him? And if so, would she ever be willing to work under his control? He didn't know. But the idea of trying was what excited him the most. The next morning, the city was already alive with its usual hustle and bustle, sirens blaring, cars honking, people rushing to their destinations. Lucas was sitting at his sleek glass desk in his penthouse office, overlooking the bustling streets of Manhattan below. His mind was still preoccupied with Ava Lawson, the mysterious woman who had, in a matter of minutes, managed to disrupt his perfectly controlled world. He picked up the phone and dialed his assistant. "Send an invitation to Ava Lawson. Have her come to the office." "I want to talk to her about something," he instructed, his voice calm but determined. Later that morning, Ava arrived at the Coal Dynamics headquarters. The building was an imposing structure of glass and steel, towering above the surrounding cityscape. As she walked through the polished lobby, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the place. Lucas Reed was one of the most influential figures in the financial world, and now she was about to meet him again. When she entered the elevator, the doors closed with a soft chime, and she pressed the button for the 45th floor. She was here on business, not as a fan, and certainly not as someone looking for approval. She didn't care about the reputation of Lucas Reed or his company. She only cared about solving problems and proving herself. Lucas was waiting for her when she arrived at his office. His demeanor was as cool and commanding as always. He was standing by the window, looking out at the skyline, his back to her. "Ava," he said without turning, his voice steady. "Thanks for coming on such short notice." "Of course," she replied, stepping forward and taking a seat across from him. She didn't offer a handshake. She wasn't here to make small talk. "You said you wanted to discuss something." Lucas finally turned to face her, his piercing blue eyes locking with hers. He took a slow step toward her, his expression unreadable. "I want you to join my team," he said. "We're launching something big here at Coal Dynamics, the Quantum Project. And frankly, I need someone who can think outside the box. You've got the skills, and you've already proven that you're not intimidated by the pressures that come with this kind of work." Ava raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly are you offering me in return? More money? A fancy title? Because that's not really what I'm after." Lucas smiled faintly, almost as though he expected this response. "You're not like the others, are you?" he asked. "I'm not offering you anything that will fit neatly into a traditional package, but I am offering you a chance to lead something groundbreaking. We need someone like you, someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. A challenge." She could feel the pull in his words, but she also felt a familiar caution rising within her. She wasn't here to work under anyone's thumb. She worked best alone, making her own decisions. But there was something about this project, something that intrigued her. "Let me be clear," Ava said, her voice steady. "I don't follow anyone blindly. If I join your team, it'll be on my terms. I'll bring my expertise, but I won't be controlled. And I'm not interested in being a part of a power struggle. I've seen what happens when egos get involved in business, and it never ends well." Lucas studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough, but I'm not asking you to follow me. I'm asking you to lead with me." There was a long silence between them. Ava felt the tension in the air, thick and palpable. Lucas was offering her something far beyond just a job. He was offering a partnership, but could she trust him? Could she work alongside someone like him and still maintain her independence? She looked at him, then leaned back in her chair. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said, his voice soft but unwavering. "Just your expertise and your commitment. We're both in the business of making things happen. This could be the biggest opportunity of your career. The question is, are you ready to take it?" Ava studied him for a moment longer. She had no idea what it would mean to work with Lucas Reeds, someone so driven, so unyielding. But she knew one thing: he was right. This was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. She finally nodded. "I'm in, but just so we're clear, this stays on my terms. No games." Lucas smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Later that day, after the meeting, Ava sat at her desk in her new office, the city stretching out below her. She had taken the offer, one she couldn't refuse. But she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Lucas Reed wasn't a man who played by the rules, and she wasn't sure she wanted to, but that was what made him so fascinating and dangerous. As she looked out the window, she couldn't help but wonder what she had gotten herself into. But one thing was for sure: she wasn't going to back down from a challenge, not now, not ever. The days following Ava's decision to join Coal Dynamics were a whirlwind. Lucas wasted no time pulling her into high-stakes meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and keeping her in the loop about every major decision regarding the quantum project. It was clear that this wasn't just another corporate initiative. It was Coal Dynamics' crown jewel, an innovation that could reshape the entire financial industry, and Lucas had placed all his trust in Ava to help make it a reality. Ava sat at the head of a sleek glass conference table in the company's high-rise, overlooking the city. The room was filled with a sense of urgency as executives, engineers, and analysts huddled together, trying to finalize the details of the project. Lucas stood at the front of the room, commanding attention with every word he spoke. "This is it," Lucas said, his voice low but sharp. "The quantum project isn't just a system, it's a revolution. We're not just predicting trends in finance. We're shaping the future of the industry itself. We have one shot to get this right. Ava, what do you think of the current model?" Ava scanned the data on her tablet, her mind working quickly as she reviewed the figures and projections. Lucas's voice had become a steady rhythm in the background as she pieced together the system's weaknesses. "It's solid," she said finally, looking up from the tablet. "But it's too rigid. If we're going to predict and adapt to future shifts in the market, we need a system that can learn and evolve in real time, something more fluid, less dependent on static data." Lucas nodded, clearly impressed. "I've been thinking the same thing. We need something that doesn't just respond to data, but actively seeks it out, adapts, and predicts market shifts before they happen. The system needs to be self-aware." Ava felt a jolt of excitement. Lucas wasn't just relying on her to fix problems, he was challenging her, pushing her to think in new ways. It was a rush she hadn't experienced in years. "Let me work on a more adaptive model," she suggested. "But it's going to take time, and we'll need more resources." "Whatever you need," Lucas replied with an unwavering confidence. "Make it happen. This project is everything." As the days stretched on, Ava dove deeper into the project, crafting algorithms and making adjustments to the model that would allow the system to evolve in real time. She and Lucas often found themselves working late into the night. Their conversations a mixture of technical jargon and sharp insights about the future of finance. There was an intensity between them, a professional chemistry that neither of them could ignore. But no matter how close they grew, neither dared to cross the line. Ava had made it clear from the start that she wouldn't be anyone's subordinate something that Lucas respected but also found challenging. One late evening, after a long discussion about the system's capabilities, Lucas leaned back in his chair and studied Ava. She was still working, her brow furrowed in concentration as she typed furiously on her laptop. "Ava," Lucas said, his voice softer than usual, "you've been working non-stop for days. Are you sure you're okay?" Ava paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She glanced up, meeting his gaze for a brief moment before returning to the screen. "I'm fine," she replied quickly. "Just a little, focused. I've got to get this right. The stakes are high, and I can't afford to make mistakes." There was something about her response that caught Lucas off guard. He had seen her at her most confident, her most brilliant, but this was different. The intensity in her eyes, the way she kept pushing herself beyond the limits, made him realize just how much she cared about this project, and, in turn, how much it meant to him. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Lucas said, his tone tinged with concern. Ava looked up again, her eyes meeting his. For a split second, there was a flicker of something in her gaze, something softer, more vulnerable than she usually let people see. But it was gone as quickly as it came. "I'm just doing what's necessary," she said, her voice steady. "The quantum project can't fail. Not now, not ever." There was a long silence between them, one that stretched longer than either of them had anticipated. Finally, Lucas stood up and walked over to her desk. He placed a hand on the back of her chair, leaning in just slightly. "You're not alone in this, Ava," he said quietly. "I'm here. We're in this together." For the first time, Ava allowed herself a brief smile. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she wasn't just part of something important, she was part of something bigger, something she didn't have to face alone. But just as Ava and Lucas were beginning to find their rhythm, something unexpected happened. A notification flashed on Lucas's phone, a message from an anonymous source, containing a set of financial reports that seemed off. As Lucas read through the details, his heart skipped a beat. There were discrepancies in the data, and worse, signs that someone had intentionally manipulated the system to look like they were in financial trouble. The stakes were higher than ever, and this was no accident. The morning after Lucas received the mysterious message, the tension in the office was palpable. Ava could sense something was off. The usual hum of activity in cold dynamics felt quieter today, the air heavier with unspoken words. Lucas had always been the picture of calm under pressure, but today, his normally collected demeanor was tinged with concern. "Lucas?" Ava asked, breaking the silence as she walked into his office, carrying her laptop. "What's going on?" Lucas looked up at her, his face tense. He had spent the better part of the morning reviewing the anonymous message and the accompanying documents. The data discrepancies were one thing, but there was something far more troubling. Someone either within the company or from the outside was sabotaging the quantum project. "I need you to take a look at this," Lucas said, motioning to the screen. "I've been going over the numbers all morning. This doesn't add up." Ava leaned over the desk, her eyes scanning the documents on the screen. Her brow furrowed as she processed the information. There were inconsistencies in the financial reports transactions that didn't make sense. Hidden costs that shouldn't have been there. And worst of all, signs of data manipulation. "This is deliberate," she said softly, her voice laced with disbelief. "Someone's trying to take us down." Lucas nodded grimly. "It looks like a coordinated attack. These aren't just random errors. Someone is trying to ruin coal dynamics, and they're using the quantum project as a way to do it." Ava straightened, a sense of urgency setting in. "Do we know who's behind this?" "No," Lucas said, his eyes hardening. "But we'll find out. The question is, how deep does this go?" The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ava worked tirelessly, tracing the source of the manipulated data and cross-referencing everything with the company's internal security logs. Lucas, meanwhile, mobilized his team to investigate the breach and secure the company's networks. Despite their efforts, the culprit remained elusive. The data trail was too clean, the manipulation too sophisticated. It was clear that whoever was behind this knew exactly what they were doing. As Ava and Lucas worked side by side, the tension between them grew. The stress of the situation only seemed to pull them closer, their interactions becoming more frequent, more charged. Ava had always prided herself on her independence. But there was something about Lucas that made it difficult to maintain the distance she so desperately needed. She couldn't help but notice the way his jaw clenched when he was under pressure, the way his eyes narrowed when he was focused, but there was no time for personal distractions. The stakes were too high. That evening, after a long day of investigation, Lucas called a meeting with his top executives. Ava joined them, her mind still racing with the data she had uncovered. As the team gathered around the large conference table, Lucas stood at the head, his posture rigid. "We're being targeted," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "Someone inside or outside the company is trying to bring us down. We need to identify the source of this attack and deal with it fast." One of the executives, a senior security officer named Marcus Vale, leaned forward. "We've traced some of the activity back to an external source, but it's been wiped clean. Whoever is doing this is extremely good at covering their tracks." Ava spoke up, her voice calm but determined. "It's not just an external attack. I've seen signs of insider involvement. The manipulation is too precise. Someone with access to our systems is feeding the data to the outside." Lucas nodded, his expression darkening. "We need to find out who that is." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the situation settling in. The quantum project was Coal Dynamics' most ambitious venture yet, and if the attack succeeded, it could cripple the company beyond repair. But Lucas knew that finding the mole within the company was going to be the hardest part. As Lucas and Ava left the meeting, they headed back to their offices, the tension between them thickening. Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of dread creeping up on her. The closer they got to uncovering the truth, the more dangerous things seemed to become. "I don't trust this," she said, as they walked down the hall together. "It's too clean, too calculated. We're missing something." Lucas looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I know, but we can't afford to miss anything. We need to find the source, and fast." They both stopped at Ava's office door, the silence between them growing uncomfortable. Ava turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "You've been holding something back." "I can tell." Lucas hesitated, then spoke. "There's something else going on here, something I haven't told you about." The person behind this isn't just trying to bring down the quantum project. They're after me. Ava raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Lucas took a deep breath, his voice low. I've made enemies, Ava. Powerful ones. I didn't expect them to come after me like this, but it seems they have. For the first time, Ava saw a crack in Lucas's armor. He was human, vulnerable in a way she hadn't realized before. She didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded. We'll figure this out, she said quietly. Together. The night had fallen over Manhattan, but inside Cole Dynamics' towering headquarters, the lights were still burning bright. Ava sat at her desk, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she combed through lines of code and financial data. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but there was a determination in her that kept her going. She knew she couldn't rest until she uncovered the truth. Lucas had given her the task of tracking the source of the sabotage. But every time she thought she was getting closer, the trail seemed to vanish into thin air. Whoever was behind this attack was good, too good. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. Meet me in my office. We need to talk. She quickly grabbed her things and made her way to Lucas's office. As she approached, she noticed a tension in the air, something more than just the usual corporate anxiety. When she entered, she found Lucas standing by the window, his arms crossed, staring out over the city. What's going on? Ava asked, her voice steady, though she could feel the weight of the moment. Lucas turned to face her. His expression was hard, his jaw clenched. I've been thinking. We've been going about this the wrong way. The sabotage, the attacks on the quantum project, they're not just financial. They're personal. Ava raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Lucas took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. I think someone in this company is out to ruin me, and they're using quantum to do it. Ava didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned against the desk, her mind racing. Lucas had been holding something back for a while, and now she understood why. The stakes had never been higher. If someone inside the company was behind this, it meant the enemy was much closer than they had anticipated. So, you think this is all about you? Ava asked, trying to piece things together. That someone here is sabotaging you specifically. Lucas nodded, his eyes dark with frustration. I've made my share of enemies over the years. Powerful people who don't like the way I've built this company. But I never thought it would come to this. I never thought someone on my own team would turn against me. Ava stared at him for a moment, then shook her head. No, it's not just about you. This is bigger than that. Whoever is doing this wants to take Cole Dynamics down. And you're right, someone on the inside is pulling the strings. We just need to figure out who. As the days passed, Ava and Lucas worked in tandem, digging deeper into the company's financials, internal communications, and security logs. The more they uncovered, the more tangled the web became. Every lead they followed led to another dead end. But there was something in Lucas's demeanor that made Ava believe they were close to a breakthrough. Late one evening, after most of the office had cleared out, Ava sat at her desk, reviewing the system logs again. There was a pattern in the way the sabotage had been executed, a series of subtle changes made to the company's databases that had gone unnoticed at first. But now, with a clearer perspective, she could see the intentional manipulation of critical financial data. She leaned forward, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. There was something here. A name, perhaps. A set of transactions that didn't belong. Her eyes widened as she found it a series of coded messages. Encrypted files exchanged between Marcus Vale, the company's senior security officer, and an anonymous external account. Marcus Vale, the man who had been helping them with the investigation. The man who had always been by Lucas's side. Ava. "What's going on?" Lucas asked from the doorway. He had been waiting for her to finish the analysis. But the look on her face said it all. "I think I found something," she said, her voice steady but edged with tension. "It's Marcus Vale. He's been in contact with an outside source. I think he's the one behind the sabotage." Lucas walked over to her desk, his heart sinking as he looked at the screen. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Ava replied, her finger tracing the encrypted messages. "Marcus has been feeding information to an external party. They've been pulling the strings from the inside. It's him." The realization hit Lucas like a punch to the gut. He had trusted Marcus, had considered him a loyal ally. But now it seemed that betrayal ran deeper than he had ever imagined. "We need to confront him," Lucas said, his voice low but filled with a quiet fury. "This ends now." The next morning, Lucas and Ava sat in a small conference room, the air thick with tension. Marcus's Vale entered, his face a mask of calm as he took a seat across from them. Ava could see the flicker of nervousness in his eyes, but he was careful to hide it behind a facade of professionalism. "What's this about?" Marcus asked, his voice steady but tinged with suspicion. "We know what you've been doing," Lucas said, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "We know about your communications with the external account. You've been sabotaging the quantum project." Marcus froze, his eyes widening slightly before he composed himself. "You're making a mistake, Lucas." "No, Marcus," Lucas said, his voice low and cold. "You made the mistake. I trusted you. And you betrayed me." Ava leaned forward, her gaze never leaving Marcus. "It's over. You've been manipulating the data, feeding it to someone who wants to destroy this company. We have all the evidence." For a moment, Marcus said nothing. Then, with a smirk that seemed too casual for the gravity of the situation, he spoke. "You think you're in control, don't you, Lucas?" Marcus said, his voice laced with venom. "But you've always been too arrogant to see what's coming. This isn't just about you or cold dynamics. It's about something bigger. You're just a pawn in a game that's much more dangerous than you realize." Before Lucas could respond, the door to the conference room opened. A figure stepped inside. Someone neither Lucas nor Ava had expected to see. It was Adrian Black, the man who had once been Lucas's greatest rival in the industry. The one person he never thought he'd cross paths with again. "You think you've won, Lucas?" Adrian said, his voice smooth as silk. "This is just the beginning. You've been played from the start." The room fell silent as the realization hit both Lucas and Ava at the same time. Marcus hadn't been acting alone. He was just a pawn in Adrian's game. The tension in the room was palpable. Lucas stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. He had been so sure of his alliances, so confident that Marcus Vale was the final piece of the puzzle. But now everything had shifted. Ava's eyes locked onto Adrian Black, her pulse quickening as she recognized the man who had been Lucas's fiercest rival for years. Adrian had always been the shadow lurking behind the success of Cold Dynamics. But no one had expected him to come back into the picture like this, pulling strings from the shadows, orchestrating a game that no one had even known they were playing. "So, this was your plan all along?" Lucas asked, his voice low, barely containing the anger that simmered beneath the surface. Adrian smiled, his expression one of pure amusement. I never wanted cold dynamics. No, Lucas, what I wanted was you, your empire, your power, and now I have you right where I want you. Marcus, sitting quietly across the table, suddenly seemed small under the weight of the accusation. His eyes shifted nervously as Adrian continued. You see, Lucas, you've been so focused on the wrong thing all these years. You've built your empire on control, on manipulating the market and crushing anyone who gets in your way. But I've been playing a much longer game. You think I'm just here to take down your project. No, I'm here to take down you. Ava leaned forward, her sharp eyes never leaving Adrian. What are you talking about? This has nothing to do with you. We're just trying to get Quantum back on track. Oh, but it has everything to do with me, Adrian replied smoothly. The Quantum project was always my target. It's the last piece of the puzzle, Lucas's last hope for redemption. It's so much more than just a system to predict the future of finance. It's the key to his legacy, and that's why I had to destroy it. Lucas's fists clenched. He had suspected Adrian was behind it all, but hearing him admit it so casually made his blood run cold. The man had played him, used his own ambition against him. So, Marcus, Lucas said, turning to the security officer who had once been his most trusted ally, you were just a tool in Adrian's game. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado gone. I didn't know, Lucas. I didn't know it would go this far. Adrian promised me power, a stake in the future. I was blind. Adrian chuckled darkly. Blind or complicit, Marcus, it doesn't matter now. You've played your part. Now it's time for the real fun to begin. Lucas was seething, but his mind was still sharp. Ava could see the shift in him. He wasn't just angry. He was calculating, like a man who had just realized the full extent of the game being played around him. So, what now, Adrian? Lucas asked, his voice steady again, his hands on the edge of the table. You've been pulling the strings all this time, but I'm still standing, and this company is still mine. What exactly is your end game? Adrian leaned back, folding his arms across his chest. I told you, I don't want cold dynamics. But you, Lucas, you've always been too proud, too You never thought anyone could outsmart you, did you? Lucas didn't flinch. You might have played me, but you'll never break me. This company is mine, and I won't let anyone destroy it. Oh, I don't need to destroy it, Lucas, Adrian said with a smirk. I just need to make sure you destroy yourself. Ava stepped forward, her sharp eyes narrowing as she tried to process what Adrian had just said. Lucas had always been a man of control, of power, but this was something different. Adrian wasn't just attacking the company. He was going after Lucas personally, and that meant he was about to enter a far more dangerous game than he realized. Adrian, Ava said coolly, you've already lost. You've already shown your hand. There's nothing left to take. Adrian looked at her, his smirk widening. You think so? You really think Lucas can get out of this unscathed? His empire is built on a foundation of lies, Ava, and everyone knows that foundations built on lies crumble. He just doesn't know it yet. Lucas looked at Ava, his gaze intense, as though he was seeing her for the first time in a new light. You've got something, don't you, Ava? He said, his voice calm despite the storm raging inside him. Ava blinked, not sure where he was going with this. What do you mean? Lucas gave a small, bitter smile. Adrian isn't just after the company. He's after me. He wants to bring me down, to break everything I've built. And now he's trying to use quantum as the weapon. Ava didn't say anything at first. She could feel the weight of the situation growing heavier, like a storm cloud hanging over them. Lucas was right. Adrian wasn't just attacking the company. He was attacking the very essence of everything Lucas had worked for. "I won't let it happen," Lucas said, a steely resolve in his eyes. "Not without a fight." Ava looked at him and nodded. "Then let's take this fight to him. We're not done yet." The room was heavy with silence as Lucas and Ava exchanged a brief look of mutual understanding. Adrian might have thought he had one. He might have thought that Lucas was on the brink of losing everything. But Lucas wasn't going down without a fight, and neither was Ava. "I'm not going to let you destroy my future, Adrian," Lucas said, his voice low but unwavering. "I'll expose you for what you are. And when I do, everything you've built will come crumbling down." Adrian's smile faltered just for a moment. But then he leaned forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "We'll see about that, Lucas. We'll see if you can survive the storm." As Adrian turned to leave, Lucas and Ava shared a look that spoke volumes. They weren't done. The game wasn't over, and this time, Lucas was ready to play by his own rules. The following days passed in a blur of planning and quiet tension. Ava and Lucas worked side by side, mapping out their strategy to counter Adrian's manipulation. They knew their enemy was dangerous, but the deeper they dug, the more they realized just how far-reaching Adrian's influence went. It wasn't just about quantum anymore, it was about control, about power, about making sure Lucas lost everything. Ava sat in her office late one night, reviewing security protocols and cross-referencing financial records when she received a call. It was from Lucas. "I need you to come to my office," he said, his voice more urgent than usual. Now she didn't hesitate. In less than a minute, she was standing in front of his door. He waved her inside, his eyes tired but sharp. "We have a problem," he said, his gaze never leaving the computer screen in front of him. Ava stepped forward, her heartbeat quickening. She knew the look in his eyes. He wasn't one to call for a meeting unless it was something big, something dangerous. "Talk to me," she said, crossing the room to his side. She glanced at the screen. The financial data there was unsettling. Anomalies, discrepancies too many for comfort. The numbers didn't match up. And there, at the very bottom of the spreadsheet, was a red flag, a massive sum of money that had been transferred out of the company's main account to an untraceable account. Where did this money go? Ava asked, her voice cold as she read the details. "Exactly what I'm trying to figure out," Lucas replied. "But it's no coincidence. Adrian is pulling the strings, and he's trying to make it look like we're on the brink of financial collapse. If he succeeds, the quantum project will be dead in the water." Despite their best efforts, the sabotage continued to escalate. Ava and Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Every move they made seemed to be anticipated by Adrian. Every step they took to uncover the truth met with more obstacles. But they weren't giving up, not this time. The tension in the office grew thicker with each passing day. Ava found herself working long hours, poring over documents and codes, trying to decipher the hidden messages that were sabotaging the quantum project. Lucas, always the picture of calm, became more focused, more determined. But there was something else beneath the surface, something Ava noticed but couldn't quite put her finger on. He was unraveling, slowly but surely. The weight of the betrayal, The pressure of saving everything he had worked for was beginning to take its toll. "Ava," Lucas said one evening, his voice quieter than usual. He was standing at the window again, staring out at the city, but his mind was clearly elsewhere. "I've spent so many years building this. I don't know what I'll have left if it all falls apart." She walked up behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone in this," she said softly. "You've got me, and you've got the quantum project. We'll get through this." Lucas didn't turn to look at her. He didn't need to. He knew she was right. But he was tired of the fight, tired of the lies, tired of the game Adrian had pulled him into. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for everything he had built. "Do you ever think about what happens after this?" he asked, his voice low. "After all the chaos, what's left?" For a moment, there was silence between them. Ava considered his question carefully. It was a question that weighed heavily on her mind, too. The stakes were higher than ever, and the future felt uncertain, like a road leading into fog. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I know one thing: we're not letting him win. Not like this. We fight until the end." The game had shifted. Adrian had played his cards well, but Lucas and Ava were no longer in the dark. They had their lead, Marcus Vale, the traitor who had once been a trusted ally. They knew that if they could find him, they could stop the sabotage and expose Adrian for good. Lucas stood in front of the boardroom, the final steps of their plan in motion. "It's time," he said, addressing his team. "We have to move quickly. We have everything we need to bring Marcus down. And once we do, Adrian will have nowhere to hide." Ava was by his side, her expression steely. She had never been more focused. They had worked together for days, preparing every step, making sure there were no holes in their plan. Adrian might have thought he was ahead, but they were about to turn the tables. The trap was set. All they had to do was wait for Marcus to take the bait. A few hours later, the office was abuzz with the tension of a final showdown. Lucas and Ava were in a small, secure conference room, the door locked behind them. They watched as Marcus Vale walked into the trap they had set for him. At first, Marcus looked confused. Then, realization set in as he took in the situation. His eyes flickered nervously between Lucas and Ava. "You're too late," Marcus said, his voice low and defiant. "You'll never make it out of this. Adrian has already won." "We'll see about that," Lucas replied, his voice calm but filled with an icy fury. "You think you can get away with this? You betrayed me, Marcus. And now you'll pay the price." As Marcus made his final move to escape, the doors to the room slammed open. Ava moved quickly, intercepting him before he could leave. With a few swift motions, they had him cornered. "Your game is over," Ava said, her voice cold and confident. But as Marcus was taken away, a strange sense of unease washed over Lucas. Adrian had made his move, but there was still something wrong. Lucas's gut told him that Marcus was just one part of a much larger plan. And with Adrian still out there, the final battle was far from over. The city lights below flickered like a sea of stars as Lucas and Ava sat in the quiet of the conference room, the weight of what had just transpired hanging over them. Marcus Vale had been apprehended, but there was no relief. The sense of impending danger still loomed large. Adrian was still out there, and Lucas knew that the worst was yet to come. "Ava," Lucas said quietly, his voice tense, "we've dealt with Marcus. But this, it's just the beginning." Adrian will never stop. He's too dangerous. Ava nodded, her expression grave. She had known this all along. Adrian wasn't someone who would just walk away after a setback. He would come back, stronger than ever, and he wouldn't hesitate to burn everything down to get what he wanted. We need to think bigger, Ava said. Her eyes focused on the screen in front of them. She pulled up a map of Coal Dynamics' network, highlighting weak points, vulnerabilities in the system. Adrian won't just attack from the inside anymore. He'll go straight for the heart of the company. We need to protect everything secure. The data, the project, our people. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had spent years building Coal Dynamics, but in all that time, he'd never expected to be in a situation like this. Adrian was relentless, and Marcus had been his pawn. Lucas had underestimated how deep the betrayal ran. Adrian isn't just after the company, Lucas said, a bitter realization settling in. He's after me. He wants to break me, destroy everything I've worked for. And he'll do it by taking Quantum down first. If we lose Quantum, we lose everything. Ava stood up, her eyes blazing with determination. Then we're not losing it. Not on my watch. Adrian will have to fight us for it. For the next few days, Lucas and Ava worked tirelessly to prepare for Adrian's next move. They fortified the company's internal systems, tightening security and strengthening the Quantum project. Every decision was critical, every action deliberate, but still, something didn't feel right. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that Adrian was playing a deeper game, one that he still didn't fully understand. Ava shared his unease, but they both knew that all they could do was wait. They had already done everything in their power to protect Coal Dynamics, but they couldn't predict what Adrian would do next. Late one night, as Lucas and Ava were finalizing their plans, Ava received a cryptic message. It was short, with no signature, just a single line. You can't stop it. It's already in motion, Ava. Lucas asked, noticing her sudden tension. What is it? She looked up at him, her face pale. It's from an anonymous source. They're telling us that it's already too late, that everything we've been working for is already compromised. Lucas felt a cold chill run down his spine. If Adrian was behind this message, then it meant they were already too late. The game had shifted again, and this time, the stakes were even higher. We can't let this break us, Ava said firmly, her voice resolute. We're not giving up. Lucas and Ava weren't the only ones playing the game. Adrian was always one step ahead, and they knew they had to be prepared for whatever came next. The next morning, as Lucas walked through the office, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The tension in the air was thick, as if the entire building was holding its breath. Lucas, a voice called from behind him. It was Marcus Vale, the man who had been caught in the middle of the conspiracy. He had been arrested and interrogated, but there was something in his eyes, now something that didn't belong. Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. Lucas, I didn't know how deep this would go. Adrian, he's not just playing games. He has something planned, and I'm not sure you'll be able to stop it. Lucas narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Marcus hesitated. Adrian is playing with something bigger than the company, Quantum. It's the key to something else. He's been trying to get control of it, but not for the reasons you think. He's been manipulating the data to create a system that can predict more than just financial markets. If he succeeds, he'll control everything. Ava stepped forward, her eyes sharp. And how does this tie back to you? Marcus shook his head. I didn't know about Adrian's full plan. But now, I realize he's been using quantum to build a new kind of predictive model, one that can predict human behavior, not just financial trends. If he's successful, he'll have the power to manipulate not just markets, but entire populations. Lucas's heart sank. This wasn't just about money or power anymore. It was about control. Adrian wasn't after quantum because of its potential in finance. He was after it because it had the power to control people's lives. And Lucas knew that if he didn't stop him now, everything he'd fought for would be destroyed. That night, Lucas and Ava sat together in the conference room, reviewing the final details of their plan. They knew they couldn't let Adrian win. The quantum project was their last line of defense, and they had to make sure it stayed out of his hands. We need to go on the offensive, Lucas said, his voice firm. We can't wait for Adrian to make the next move. We need to take control back. Ava nodded. We've prepared everything. We know his weaknesses. Now we need to strike when he least expects it. The next day, Lucas and Ava moved swiftly, executing their final plan with precision. They targeted Adrian's vulnerabilities, dismantling his influence from within the company. They used quantum's predictive capabilities against him, anticipating his every move, until they had him cornered. The final confrontation came when Adrian attempted to launch a final attack on coal dynamics, using quantum to manipulate global markets. But Lucas and Ava had already set a trap. As Adrian tried to activate the system, they flipped the switch, locking him out and exposing his entire plan to the world. Adrian's face twisted in rage, as the system he had tried to control crumbled before him. The fight was over. The dust had finally settled, but the storm left its mark. Lucas stood at the top of Coal Dynamics' building. The city sprawled out beneath him. The skyline that had always represented his success now seemed almost ... distant. The battle with Adrian had been fierce, and though they had emerged victorious, Lucas knew that winning this war had come at a great cost. His empire was intact, but everything had changed. Beside him, Ava gazed at the city as well, the faintest hint of exhaustion in her eyes. They had fought together harder than either of them had expected, and yet the relief that should have followed the victory felt strangely hollow. We did it, Ava said, breaking the silence, but it doesn't feel like I thought it would. Lucas turned to her, his expression thoughtful. You're right. We won, but something feels off. It's like Adrian wasn't the only thing we had to fight. There was always more beneath the surface. Ava nodded, looking down at her hands. I don't think we'll ever be the same after all of this. There's a cost to everything: this victory, this company, the trust, the friendships. Everything's changed. Lucas was quiet for a moment. I've spent so long building this company, focused on control, on winning. But at what cost? What have I really built? There was a moment of reflection before Lucas continued, his voice softening. The company survived. But now I have to rebuild everything I thought I knew. The next few weeks were a blur. The media was in an uproar, covering Adrian's downfall and the collapse of his manipulative schemes. Lucas was hailed as the man who saved his company from the brink of destruction. But the applause felt hollow. Ava threw herself into the technical side of things. She worked tirelessly to stabilize the quantum project, making sure it was safe from any future attacks and improving its design to ensure that it couldn't be used for manipulation again. But in the quiet moments, Ava couldn't help but wonder if they had truly won. or if they had merely escaped a much darker future. As for Lucas, he took a step back from the public eye. For the first time, he allowed himself the space to think beyond business. The victory over Adrian had been a wake-up call. There was something deeper at place, something he hadn't noticed before. "Ava," Lucas said one evening, as they sat together in the office, "I need to ask you something." Ava looked at him, a mix of curiosity and concern in her gaze. "What is it? Now that this is over, what's next for you? For us?" Ava was silent for a moment, her fingers lightly tapping the surface of the desk. "I don't know," she said finally. "I never thought about what comes after, but I do know that what we've been through, it changes things. For both of us." Lucas nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I'm glad we've made it through this, and I'm glad it was you by my side. I don't think I would have gotten through it without you." With Adrian gone and the company's future secured, Lucas began to reconsider the direction of Coal Dynamics. His role had always been one of control, managing every detail, of making sure things stayed the course. But now, he wondered if that was the right approach. It wasn't just about profits and success anymore. It was about creating a company that could stand on its own, one that didn't rely on the ego of its CEO to thrive. He thought about how Ava had stepped up when it mattered, how she had challenged him at every turn. And perhaps that was the key, letting go of the need for control, and allowing people like her to lead in their own way. Ava had her own path, too. She had proven herself time and time again, not just as a brilliant analyst, but as a leader in her own right. But whether she chose to stay or go, Lucas knew that the company had evolved. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for him to evolve. 2 days turned into weeks, and the shadows of Adrian's influence gradually faded away. Coal Dynamics started its new chapter, one that was less about power and more about innovation, collaboration, and sustainability. Lucas had a new vision, now one that didn't just focus on being the best in the world, but on being the best for the world. And with that new vision came new possibilities. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in a long while, Lucas felt hopeful about the future. One morning, as he walked into the office, Ava was already there, as usual, immersed in the numbers and the algorithms that had always been her comfort zone. But today, she looked up when he entered. "I've been thinking," Ava began, her voice steady but filled with a sense of excitement about the next phase of quantum, about how it can help not just finance, but industries across the world. Lucas smiled. For the first time, he felt a true partnership with Ava. She wasn't just an ally. She was someone who believed in the same future he now saw, our future, where technology served people, not the other way around. "You know, Ava, I think we're just getting started," Lucas said, his eyes sparkling with determination. "The real work begins now, and we'll do it together." With Ava by his side, Lucas stepped into a new era for Coal Dynamics. They had survived Adrian's attack, and now they were ready to build something far more powerful than any system of control. They were ready to create something that would change the world together. Months passed, and the changes at Coal Dynamics were undeniable. The company had shed its former skin, no longer a fortress built on control and secrecy, but one that embraced collaboration, innovation, and transparency. Lucas and Ava had led the charge, guiding Coal Dynamics toward a new future, one where technology wasn't just a tool for power, but a bridge to progress. But the journey wasn't without its challenges, as the company began to flourish under the new direction. Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that there were still pieces of the puzzle he hadn't fully figured out. Adrian's shadow still lingered in the back of his mind. Despite their victory, he knew that there would always be forces out there unseen, dangerous that could rise up when least expected. One late afternoon, as Lucas stood by the window of his office, looking out at the city skyline, he heard the soft chime of his phone. It was an email, one that came from an anonymous account. He hesitated before opening it, knowing it could be something that would once again shatter the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Subject: "You're not done yet." The message was brief, cryptic, and ominous. "The game's not over. Lucas, you and Ava have only seen the surface. The real players are still out there, and they're watching. Be ready." Lucas stared at the screen for a long moment. His heart began to race, but he quickly regained his composure. He couldn't afford to let fear creep in not after everything he had overcome. "Ava," he said quietly, pressing the intercom button. "Get in here." When Ava entered his office, she immediately noticed the look in his eyes. She could tell something was off. The past few months had been filled with their efforts to secure their future, but Lucas had always been a man who sensed danger long before it arrived. "Another message?" Ava asked, her voice steady but concerned. Lucas nodded, showing her the email. Ava read it, her expression darkening. "You think this is from Adrian?" she asked. "I don't know," Lucas replied, his voice low. "But something about this doesn't sit right. The world has changed, Ava, but that doesn't mean we're out of danger. Not yet." For a moment there was a heavy silence between them. Then Ava spoke, her voice resolute. "Then we prepare for whatever comes next," she said, her eyes meeting his. Together, Lucas turned toward the window again, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. But this time, there was something different in the way he stood. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Not with Ava by his side. The city stretched out before him, full of possibilities and dangers alike. And for the first time in a long time, Lucas felt ready for whatever came next.